Hi Steph, I'm Dr. LeCompte.
Hi.
Welcome to Kings Vet Hospital.
Thank you.
So this is Trey, and is this a new puppy for you?
Yes, we've had him for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Is your first time you ever had a puppy?
It is.
Great. Well, welcome to our hospital. Today, if it's okay with you, I'm going to spend a little bit more time than I normally do. And I want to do 3 things. I want to talk about what to expect medically over the next few months. We're going to talk about do an exam and make sure that Trey is healthy. And with your permission, I'm going to spend a little extra time and talk about some behavior stuff, because that's one of the most important ways that we can help you by getting his manners started out correctly and making sure that he's going to be a well-mannered pup for you. So with your permission, we'll spend some extra time talking about that. In fact, we'll kind of start with that right now, if that's okay with you.
That's great.
Great. The reason why I even do this little talk is because as a young veterinarian long ago, I found that half the questions that I would get were behavior questions, and it blew me away, because back then, we didn't have any behavior classes in school, and now it's a specialty. But it quickly became apparent that that is a major concern for a lot of people. So I wasn't particularly good at behavior, and I knew that if I was going to be any kind of veterinarian, I'd have to get good at it. So I was lucky to get some mentorship and some great people along the way. And what I'm going to go through in the next 10-15 minutes is a recipe. It's the culmination of 25 years boiled down into a little recipe for behavior to help you get started with the proper manners for Trey, your puppy, okay? So, having said that, the key to a well-mannered puppy is praising her when she does the right thing. And so as you're housebreaking her, you take her out to go potty, and she goes, you say, "Good Trey," the second she goes, not when she comes in the door. Here you go, there you go. And so she chews to calm. The second she does that, "Good Trey." So praise her anything time she does the right thing, okay? That's the easy part. The harder part is this, not letting her fail. But if she does fail, a responsible person has to be there to see it happen, so that you can do what? Interrupt the failure, replace it with the proper thing, and then praise. So remember that ditty: interrupt, replace, praise. Interrupt, replace, praise. For example, we're in your kitchen right now. Trey's chewing on the Kong as she's doing right now. She stops, she goes over to the baseboard and chews, and you interrupt her by noise. I say no, or I clap my hands. I got to startle her so she knows that's inappropriate. Nothing physical, just verbal. And then the second she stops, I replace the inappropriate thing, the baseboard, with the proper chew toy, in this case the Kong. And she chews, and I praise her right away. "Good girl." She squats to urinate. I say, "Trey, no." I interrupt her. She stops. I take her outside and replace the improper place with a proper place. And then I praise her the second she goes. And that dynamic has to happen over and over for her to learn the rules of the home. Now, the number one mistake that people make with their puppies, bar none, is they give them too much freedom too soon. And if they have too much freedom, then no one is there to praise them or interrupt them based upon what they're doing. So a little self-diagnosis: if your puppy fails and no one is there to see it happen immediately, then your puppy has too much freedom. Now, there's 2 assets to use in your home to prevent too much freedom and to control space. Raising puppies is about controlling space. They are spatial animals. So the first is a crate. Crates are awesome instruments. They're going to be your best friend as you raise this puppy. Why do crates work well? Because dogs are denning animals by nature. They like enclosed areas, and if you use it properly, it's going to mimic their den or their bedroom. So I use the crate at night. At this age, I put the crate near my bed so I can respond to her if she's got to go out in the middle of the night. Okay? That's not necessary forever, but for now, that's what I do. And I'll put her in there at night, and I let her out in the morning, and if she's got to get out, I let her out to go to the bathroom. But she'll outgrow that, having to get up in the middle of the night pretty quickly and then stay in there all night. The second time I use the crate is when you're gone. When you leave the house, if it's going to be less than 3 hours at this age, then I put her in that crate. Now, the key to a crate is this: if it's too big, they can pee or poop in that crate and get away from her. So you want it to be just big enough for the dog to get up and turn around in, okay? And the other thing that can make a normal dog pee or poop in a crate is if you have a blanket in there, so that could be too tempting for them. So, or they can chew those. So in the beginning, I don't put a lot of stuff in that except for a chew toy, so they're not tempted to soil their crate. So the The third time, so I use that crate when I'm going for short time periods. Now if I'm going to go for a longer time period, I'm going to put the crate in a puppy-proof room with no wires and nothing that you can destroy, like a utility room or a bathroom. And I put the crate with the door open so she could go into her crate, and I put a piece of paper down so she could go on that piece of paper if she has to fail. And as she gets older, she'll be able to hold it longer and longer and be able to be in that crate for longer periods of time as well. So that's the third time I use the crate is when I'm home. This is the hardest one for most people, but it's very important. When she's home and nobody can watch her, there could be 10 people at home, but if no one can focus on her, she needs to be in the crate. And every dog should know how to be in a crate just because. Every week I get cases that need to be rested. They have had back surgery or knee surgery. They have to have some condition which they have to be restricted, and a crate's a great asset. So every dog, no matter what their age, should know how to be in a crate, and this will help establish that for a young dog. If you start at times when you're home and no one can watch her, she's in a crate. It's not a punishment, it's a babysitter, okay? The second thing to use to prevent too much freedom in the house is a leash inside the house. It's called the umbilical cord technique. It works fantastic, and basically what you do is you have a lightweight, easy to manage leash, about 5 to 6 feet, and it's always attached to her so she can't wander off, and she's always on your belt loop or in your chair attached, and then only two things can happen. Either she succeeds and you praise her, or she fails and you interrupt, replace, praise. And it takes many, many months for them to gain their freedom. When they're consistently doing the right thing, giving you signals to go outside, chewing on the appropriate thing, you're not having to interrupt her, then she can gradually get her freedom. But it's a very gradual, slow process, and people always want to speed it up. Okay? So basically, that's the first principle: do not give too much freedom too soon. How? Crate and a leash inside the house. The second principle is chewing. Dogs need to chew. It's what they do to entertain themselves when you can't. And here's what most people do with new puppies. They get a variety of chew toys. Rawhides and socks and pull toys and just all these different structures, bones and things. And the problem with a variety is they can't differentiate between what's a toy and what's not. Everything is fair game because everything has different structures to it, different textures. And so I like to addict my puppy to one chew toy. And I'm a fan of Kongs. I'm holding this Kong, and as we're talking, Trey here is chewing on the Kong down here on the carpet. And the reason why I like Kongs is because you can clean them, you can stuff them. I put some freeze-dried liver in here for Trey. But most important, they're very durable, but most importantly is that they can't consume them. They don't eat these. I'm not big on chew toys that dogs eat. Rawhides, pig's ears, those kind of things. And the problem with those is there's more calories that add to their weight. There's proteins that can cause, add to food allergies in the future. So basically I like to give them this. And the way I addict them to this is I take everything else, I put it away, and I get 4 or 5 Kongs, and no matter where my pup is, I'm sticking this in her mouth. It's available to her. It's in her crate. It's in the kitchen. It's in the backyard. No matter where she is, this is available for her to chew. And I'm encouraging her to. In fact, when my puppies are small, my kids were not allowed to pick up those dogs if they didn't have a Kong in their hand at the same time to be putting in the mouth and focusing the dog on the proper chew toy. So Kongs are my preferred chew toy. Now, I will also use a sterilized beef bone, which is a bone that has been processed. It's very hard, and they cannot swallow it. You can clean it and stuff it just like a Kong. The only downside to that is they're hard, and some doctors believe that dogs can break their teeth on them, but it really hasn't been my experience, and I think a good alternative. But this is my preferred chew toy, is the Kong, K-O-N-G, okay? The third principle has to do with her body, and there's 3 parts to her body. First is that she must learn that her teeth are sharp and your skin is sensitive, so she must learn bite inhibition. And the way I teach that, suppose I'm sitting down and I'm watching TV, and I'm watching the movie, and she's in my lap, and she starts to bite my hands. It hurts. Those teeth are like needles, and my normal reaction is to go, ouch! I squeak and I move, and she thinks, oh, what a great chew toy. And she gets worse and worse. Or little kids run and their legs are moving and the dog's biting them and they're squealing and the dog just gets incessant about it, and it's not a very nice habit to have to deal with. So the way that I teach to inhibit my bite, take a view, see how good, this is how the Kong is supposed to work, by the way. See if she's entertaining herself while I'm talking here and she's enjoying that Kong that's been stuffed with a little bit of freeze-dried liver. So back to the bite inhibition. So now the puppy is in my lap and it bites my hands, and instead of squealing in a high voice and moving my hands, I go against my instincts and I keep my hands there. I don't move my hands. I lower my voice, and with great posture I go, ow, right near the puppy's head. And that puppy will stop instantaneously, look up at you and lick you, or come back and lick your hand. And then I'll go, oh, thank you, with a high voice, and that tells her that licking is acceptable, but the bite isn't. And from then on, anytime she puts her mouth on me, even if it's gentle, if it's an open mouth, it's on my shoe or my pant leg, and I act like it hurts me, I say ouch in a low voice, I mimic that loud voice, and she'll back off thinking, oh, you're a wimp, I can't chew on you. So she learns to inhibit her bite and go from biting to licking. The second principle about her body is that there's a right way to play with your dog. And what I mean by that is we don't want her to grow up to think that the body's the play object and she's jumping on you and she's knocking you over if you've got a big dog. So the best game to play with your dog is fetch. And the reason fetch is a great game is because it's a third object, it's not your body, okay? If you do it right, you're bonding with your dog. You make her bring it back, you make her sit, she releases the toy, so you're bonding with your dog. And most importantly is you can tire your pet out. You can do it inside in the dead of winter. You break your leg, you can still do it. Kids can do it. Anybody can do it. And you can tire your pet out. Almost every behavior problem that we see as veterinarians, one of the components is those pets don't get enough of their energy needs met. And this allows you to do that in a very effective, efficient way. Okay, so as a consequence, I'm not a big fan of tug of war and wrestling with your hands and your bodies with your dogs because they can't differentiate that. I often get families that have boys and men that are in the household, and the women come back frustrated on the repeat visits because the dog's still biting, the dog's still very rough, and I always ask, are the men doing the rough housing with their hands and the tug of war? And the answer is always yes, with the rolling eyes, and that just can't happen. Get the hands and the body away, get the third object. I'm not saying once your dog's not a great dog and has all his or her manners down that you can't wrestle with your dog, but if you start that way all the time, you're asking for trouble, especially with your bigger dogs. Okay? The third part to the body is this. You need to own your dog's body. You need to be able to do anything in the world to her. You need to look at her mouth, touch her ears, trim her nails, put her on her back, anything. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to play vet. In a minute, I'm going to do her examination, and I'm going to demonstrate. But here's what happens. Every puppy in the world, whether they're a Chihuahua or a Great Dane, is you start to control their body. And I'm not talking about when they're sleeping and you're loving on them. I'm talking about anytime, anywhere, you start to control their body. They're going to very quickly say, Mom and Dad, don't mess with me. I don't want you to control my body. And they're going to have a little temper tantrum. And they're going to do one of three things. Cry like you're killing them, struggle like crazy, or try to bite you, or all three. And I teach a thing called out-patiencing my puppy. I'm going to have more patience than she does, and I'm just going to ride it out until she relaxes and gives in. Now, I'll warn you, it's a little confrontational. There's not an ounce of pain to your pup, but here's what happens. I get in a position, so I'm holding her around her neck, and I'm looking at her, and she starts to struggle. I don't let her get her mouth on me. I don't let her get away. And I ignore her crying, I don't say a word. And eventually, she's going to stop and give in. Okay? And I'll go back to my manipulations, and she's going to struggle for half as long, and then she settles down, and I go back, and then you get the point. Eventually, she totally gives in. I'll warn you, some dogs it takes 2 minutes. We had a Rottie puppy at 6 weeks of age that weighed like 8 pounds. And the day my wife did this, is she put a clock on the counter and said, this is the first time we're really going to go do this control. It took us 30 minutes by the clock to get that puppy to totally acquiesce and give in and let us do anything we wanted without crying. 30 minutes timed. That was a 6-week-old Rottie. So, and what happens is we do it over and over and over. You really cannot do it too much, you know. So, and if you find something that your dog particularly resists as you're doing this, that's what you're going to plug out twice as hard. You're going to do that even more until that pet acquiesces. Okay? So that's to control the body. The final thing is there's 2 reasons why puppies will grow up to bite. In general, I'm simplifying biting, but in general, 2 reasons. One is that they're a fearful puppy. And I can tell that Trey's a great little puppy. She came right up and jumped on my lap in the beginning before the camera was on, and she's very social, so she's very social with people. But there's 2 things that every puppy should be socialized to. Puppies are their own peer group and people. So I'm a big fan of puppy kindergarten classes. They're popular, they're all over the country, different places put them on, and you want someone who has some experience. But the point of these puppy classes at a young age is it gets them exposed to other puppies of their peer group, and they learn how to be dogs with dogs, and they get passed to a lot of people and handled by people. I'm a fan of taking your puppy to the ball games and to your neighbors and getting that dog exposed, assuming you live in an area where people take good care of their pets and they have them vaccinated. But the risk of not having a puppy socialize is much greater than the risk of problems with diseases if you're in a good community with good pet care in general. So socialization is very important to reduce fears. The second reason puppies will grow up to bite in general is if they become the alpha dogs, if they run the whole show in the family. Your family is a pack, and now this new member, Trey, is going to figure out in the next 1.5 to 2 years where she fits in the pack. And most puppies, if left to their own devices, are going to want to be the top dog. Not all of them, but most will be. The best dogs in the world, the Rin Tin Tins and Lassies and all the great dogs that we know about, are below all the humans in the pack. And the way we establish that they're not the bosses in the pack is this. Number 1 is your puppy needs no commands. Sit down, stay, come when called. They must know how to do that from anybody in the household who's over 3 years of age. Dr. Ian Dunbar has some videos on dogstarddaily.com, and you can teach a dog how to do these commands using the proper treats and the position of your hands very easily, and youngsters can do it. The point is your puppy must learn how to do these commands by everybody in the family. Commands are the work that dogs do. It's the work that they do. It develops their brain, it gives them independence, it works them, and they need it. It's very healthy for them. And then we use the commands to make them earn 3 things for the rest of their life. And these are the things that the alpha dogs control in the pack. Food, that's number 1. So when we feed our dogs, there's 2 feedings a day. They're not free-fed. That's a recipe for disaster in all kinds of areas, being obese and overly controlling of the family. So they basically are fed twice a day. It's a specific amount, and they must go through some series of commands before they get to the food. So at this age, the puppy's on a leash, so she can't get to the food if she really wants it. So I'm controlling space with the leash. I make her do a few commands in a row. Sit down, sit down, sit down. And then I say, take it, and I release her, and she takes her food. So she's quickly, in a very fast and efficient way, doing commands to earn every meal for the rest of her life. And people take turns doing that. The second thing every puppy should earn is getting on any kind of furniture. The alpha dog in a pack controls who sleeps where. Again, that's a spatial thing. And basically, if they're allowed on a chair or a couch or a bed, that's a privilege, and they should only be allowed up there if they do a command to earn it first. The third thing a pet should earn is coming and going out the door, because the other thing the alpha dog controls is who comes and goes from the pack. And your door is the edge of your house pack, spatially. So every time they go through that door, if they don't have to earn it, they think they're controlling the door. In fact, the little puppy says, I got to go potty, Mom, and they start to bark at the door. They're saying, hey, slave, open the door, and you go open the door, and thank you, slave, for letting me out. Now you just reverse that by the dog gives you a signal like you want her to, but when you get to the door, you make her sit. Now you've reversed it, and you're in control of the door by making her earn going in or going out the door. And if you're going out with your dog, you make her sit, you go first, and then she follows you, okay? And you do that every time you do the door, every time she gets on furniture, and every time they're fed, they earn it with commands. And that helps develop their brain and knows that you're the boss, okay? So, my recipe for success for the proper manners of a puppy are, number 1, do not give too much freedom using the crate and the leash inside the house. Number 2, addict your puppy to chew the right chew toys to entertain themselves when you can't. And that's the Kong or the sterilized beef bone. Number 3 is controlling the body. How? Bite inhibition, and holding her body, working her body so you're in complete control, and a proper way of playing with your dog by playing fetch. And the final thing is to reduce aggression by socialization at an early age and through command work to earn the privileges of being the alpha. Alrighty, so good luck and happy puppying. Now this is Trey, and Trey is, how old is Trey?
About 12 weeks.
12-week-old puppy, and she's been very patient during this talk, and I'm going to demonstrate the control of the body that we want to master as she grows and develops. And basically, while we were talking this whole time, she was playing with these Kongs and chewing on very nicely and entertaining herself while we couldn't. Now I'm going to shift over to me being control of the body, and I get her in a position that she can't get away from me. I'm going to caress her firmly and gently at the same time, and just get her used to her whole body being handled. Now usually the 2 things that most dogs resist are the head and the paws. And what I'm going to do is start with the head, and I'm just going to touch a little bit at a time, her eyes, ears, and I'm going to touch her mouth, and just start with small bits at a time. But eventually I'm going to be able to look in that mouth and stay longer periods in any given area. And she's doing great. She's being a wonderful puppy right now. She's really being a stellar little puppy here. Occasionally she puts her paw up to pull my hand away, and I just don't let it get there, as you can see. And there's not an ounce of pain at all to her body. Maybe a little bit to her ego as we go along, but that's irrelevant. Okay? So I'm looking, checking her out. I'll give her a little praise when she's being good. Good puppy. That's awesome. And I can see that she's got nice healthy eyes. So down the road, if you've got to pill your dog, she's used to it. You know, if you've got to take something out of her mouth that she's chewing, you can do that. Ears, good shape, and paws. So I'm touching her paws a lot. I pretend like I'm going to do her nails at any given time, and I just kind of push her through it. If there's a part that she doesn't like, I don't let that win. I just keep doing it until she gives in. Alrighty? Nothing wrong with picking her up, letting her relax a little bit. That's good. Good girl. If I want to put her on her back, I can do that. If I want to look at her rear end, I can do the same thing. So you get the point. The whole point is that no matter what I want to do physically to my puppy, I do it. I don't let her have a temper tantrum to get away. And if I'm more patient than her and I just ride it out, eventually she's going to give in and let me do it. There are some puppies who are growling and they're just twirling around and they're just going crazy. She's a really, really good patient. So there's no problem with her, and she's going to be a really, really good puppy for whoever, for you and as you go about training her and working with her. Fantastic. That's what you want in a puppy right there, just like that. See that? Good girl. That's a sweetie.